And it was to be expected or not. But here is the sixth part of the United States Civil War brewing. What was expected by many, but not by others, has happened. Joe Biden is no longer what? The candidate for November 5th as president, or to be elected as president of the United States, and appoint someone as his successor, approved by all. No, not yet. But stay tuned for what we are going to show as well about Kamala Harris. Well, here is the news that so many people were waiting for, and that some others were not. But well, now we are going to show it. Once again before, remember this, if you have not seen all the previous presented on this subject, it would be better that you first start with these two conferences presented in North Carolina, which have to do with civil war in the United States and the second coming of Jesus. Well, after this, everything we have done so far has to do directly with it, and more what we will do in Chicago, God willing, while the Democratic Convention will be precisely there, in the same place. What a coincidence. Well, here's the news. Joe Biden announces the withdrawal of his candidacy for re-election. I think it is the best thing for the country. The President of the United States, Joe Biden, announced this Sunday that he is withdrawing his candidacy to run for re-election in next November's elections and has shown his support for Kamala Harris, his vice president, to replace him in the presidential race. Yes, what were we talking about in the last part of this series? Well, precisely that it could be a woman. Well, look, what a thing. The president has shared a letter where he reveals his decision and adds that this week he will give more details about it. I will address the nation this coming week to give more details about my decision, he said. In the missive, shared on X, the social network formerly known as Twitter, Biden says, "It has been the greatest honor of my life to be your president. And while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to step down and focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term." This was his purpose, to continue the rest of his term. Well, you will see a news item near the end, see what he says, and not him. For now, let me express my deepest thanks to all those who have worked so hard to see me re-elected. I want to thank Vice President Kamala Harris for being an extraordinary partner in all of this work. And let me express my heartfelt thanks to the American people for the faith and trust they have placed in me, Biden adds in his letter to the public. He also stresses that in the last 3.5 years, great strides have been made as a nation. I know none of this could have been done without you, the American people. Together, we overcame a once-in-a-century pandemic and the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. We have protected and preserved our democracy. And we have revitalized and strengthened our alliances around the world, the president says in the letter. Of course, all this from their point of view. Others will say otherwise, not something else, but quite the opposite. In a subsequent tweet, Biden has expressed his support for Kamala Harris as a candidate for president. My first decision as the party's nominee in 2020 was to choose Kamala Harris as my vice president. And it was the best decision I ever made. Today, I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala to be our party's nominee this year. Democrats, it's time to unite and defeat Trump. Let's do it. Anyway, about Kamala Harris, we already dedicated some years ago a few news, a lot of information about her. Anyway, if you do not know it, if you have never seen it, it is worth to look for those conferences because they provide very interesting data. In his letter, Biden reviewed other achievements of his term in office. The United States today has the strongest economy in the world. We have made historic investments to rebuild our nation, to reduce the cost of prescription drugs for seniors, and to expand affordable health care to a record number of Americans. Biden has also highlighted the critical care that millions of veterans exposed to toxic substances have received and the passage of the first gun law in 30 years. The first African American woman has been appointed to the Supreme Court, and the most important climate legislation in the history of the world has been passed, he said. Interesting, about climate legislation, which Donald Trump, in principle, is going to blow up. If he wins, of course, and if he gets there. Joe Biden was coming under increasing pressure to drop out of the re-election race, especially after the disastrous debate with Donald Trump in which the president was erratic and hesitant. Biden's advanced age, 81, and his health problems, accompanied by falls, public absent-mindedness, and an evident physical and mental deterioration, had long put him in the firing line. All this, added to Donald Trump's growing popularity in the polls, especially after the attempted assassination attempt he was the victim of last week, has precipitated Joe Biden's decision. Yes, this has favored Donald Trump, the foiled attack, and on the other hand, it seemed that the Democrats, with the command of Joe Biden, were going down the drain, and now after so much pressure, Joe Biden has decided to step aside. And what has this done? Since he has appointed Kamala Harris as his successor, or rather successor, then there has been some kind of reaction. Let's see a little bit of what all that is, but first the statements also from her. Kamala Harris accepts the challenge. The Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, has thanked Joe Biden for his support, but has defended the need to earn this nomination. Because, of course, he has nominated her, but they still have to be in debate whether it is going to be her or it is going to be someone else. I am honored to have the president's support, and my intention is to earn and win this nomination, Harris said in a message posted on social networks. During the last year, I have traveled around the country talking to Americans about the clear choice they will have to make in this momentous election, and that is what I will continue to do in the coming days and weeks, she said. Harris has pledged that she will do everything in my power to unite the Democratic Party and unite our nation to defeat Donald Trump and his extremist Project 2025, which we showed precisely in the conference above. We have 107 days until the election. Together we will fight. And together we will win, he reiterated. And look where, from Russia they also say something. Moscow, after Biden's withdrawal, the media and politicians who manipulated the public opinion must be investigated. Joe Biden has announced that he is withdrawing from the presidential race, but has not specified where, commented Maria Zakharova, spokeswoman for the Russian Foreign Ministry, on the statement of the U.S. president. The official wrote on her Telegram channel that the next step should be an investigation into the collusion of the U.S. media and political circles, which concealed the true situation about his mental state, manipulating public opinion and playing along with a political party. Well, once again, they are starting, some here, some there, it was to be expected. Donald Trump, after Joe Biden withdrew his candidacy for president of the USA, the worst president in history. Well, it was to be expected that he would spout some of these, wasn't it? And look what he goes saying here. Joe Biden has been the worst president in the history of the United States by far, Trump stated. Moreover, despite the fact that it is not yet known who will be his rival in the battle for the presidency in the United States, he has already left a message for one of the favorites to take the reins of the Democratic nomination. Kamala Harris will be even easier to defeat than Biden, Trump said in his interview. Well, we will see how all this goes. You know that these triumphalist political statements sometimes go overboard, and more with all that is being sought to happen in that country, civil war. Professor Pedro Rodriguez's analysis of Biden's withdrawal, it is not good news for Trump. For Professor Pedro Rodriguez, the announcement of Joe Biden's withdrawal from the U.S. presidential elections is not good news for his rival, Donald Trump. And why? Look what he goes so far as to say. It's not good news for Donald Trump. The favored candidate for him was Biden, especially without the necessary capacity to cope with the 15 weeks left until the election. It is something that cannot be said unexpected, but it is not good news for the Trump campaign, he said. For his part, Donald Trump has celebrated the resignation to the re-election of Joe Biden and has pronounced on his possible successor, Kamala Harris, about whom he has said that it will be easier to defeat. It has been the President of the United States himself who has offered his full support to the Vice President through his social networks to succeed him in the political race for the presidential elections, to be held on November 5th. Well, between now and November 5th, I think we will still have to see and hear many things, and we will see what direction everything is taking. But you see, if on the one hand, it seems that without Biden, who was the clearest head of the whole party, it was already difficult for him to beat Trump, as they say, well, with Kamala Harris, it seemed that it could also be easier, because they say she is a woman who does not have much charisma, who has not reached the public much, etc., etc., etc. But now we will see some interesting data, yes, from today. The thing is, not everybody thinks that this is a flattering thing for Donald Trump. Look, Trump claims that Biden was never fit to be president. And well, he comes back with his lines. Corrupt Joe Biden was not fit to run for president, and he is certainly not fit to hold the office, says the far-right winger. And what else does he get to say? And he never was. Yes, of course he is. That's him. Well, all this is heating up the panorama. And also here we are told, Trump, who lost to Biden in the 2020 presidential election and has never admitted defeat, accused him of having won office through lies and claimed that everyone around him, including the media, knew that he was not capable of being president. Well, you can see that this line is also what Russia says, well, and that so many people have expressed the same opinion, wherever they are from, evidently, because they knew that the man, poor thing, was no longer up to much. The New York magnate took advantage of the occasion to rail against the immigration policy of the Biden administration, which, in his opinion, has allowed the entry of millions of uncontrolled migrants, many of whom come from prisons, psychiatric institutions, and a record number of terrorists, he said. Wow, paints them well, eh? We will suffer greatly because of his presidency, but very quickly remedy the damage he has caused, Trump stated. Anyway, you see, one talks grandstanding about what he has done, and the other says what he has done is a disaster. Then this appears. They asked Biden to resign as president. Notice that earlier he was saying that he is going to stay in office until November 5th, even if he does not run for anything else after that. The Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, Republican Mike Johnson, has urged U.S. President Joe Biden to resign from office following his unprecedented announcement to step down as an election candidate. If Joe Biden is unfit to run for president, he is unfit to be president. He should immediately resign from office. November 5th is not close enough, Johnson said in a message published on X. So he has to drop everything now, and said by the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, almost nothing, well. And here's another one. Joe Biden's resignation, live Kamala Harris, Biden's legacy is unmatched in modern history. The vice president gets donations to skyrocket and raises nearly $50 million in hours. See? Maybe it won't be so bad for them. Obama praises Biden as a patriot, but neither he nor Pelosi are endorsing Harris at the moment. The Clintons do. Watch them tell us here. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris delivers her first speech Monday following Joe Biden's resignation from the presidential race. Biden's legacy is unmatched in modern history, she said at the White House during an event that was already scheduled with college athletes to support grassroots sports. He also thanked Biden for his honesty and commitment, adding that he is recovering quickly after testing positive for COVID. After Sunday's surprise announcement by the president, who took the opportunity to offer his endorsement of Harris as a replacement, Biden's campaign has officially become the vice president's campaign, having raised $49.6 million, which is the same as 45.5 million euros. 45.5 million in just one afternoon thanks to donations from campaigners. Harris has also garnered an outpouring of support in the Democratic ranks in recent hours. Former President Barack Obama praised Biden as a patriot, but neither he nor former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi are so far among the Democrats backing Harris. But you see, in one afternoon he got a lot of donations, surprise to many. On the other hand, they were also commenting that the money that Biden had raised for the campaign now also went directly to her, which, according to analysts and in the United States, it is shown that what is important to win in an election is the amount of millions that are invested in the career of a person, of a candidate. Yes, things go like that. It is surprising. In other places this is practically surprising, yes, but there, this is how it works. Well, having said that, we can see that it seems that there may be a balance of forces now, and if nothing happens to any of the candidates until Election Day, imagine that once again a vote is taken and a result comes out, and this result is going to be accepted by both sides, or by one and not by the other. Remember what we presented earlier in those conferences in North Carolina. The two sides said that neither side would accept defeat because everyone would say that this is manipulated, and then the conflict would be served. You see, be it by an attack on one of the candidates, and that he would not get out. Now Trump, it seems that he has come out as if nothing. If you add to this that the time of the elections is coming and all this can happen, in short. The fact is that yes, the Civil War, sooner rather than later, will come, unfortunately, but you know in prophecy that is clear, because it is necessary that this happens to return to a tremendous morality, to a morality in quotation marks Christian, tremendous, with all that this will imply. Anyway, we will be giving more details of all this, especially in those conferences in Chicago. And we end with this. It is not new. The Simpsons predicted the rise of Kamala Harris. Why do cartoons have so much political potency? Yes, remember, even when this happened at the beginning of Joe Biden could become president, she appeared dressed like the character Lisa Simpson of those cartoons. Of course, they said the cartoons have captured it before it happened. Well, the fact is that she appeared like that. Was it a little joke of hers, or really coincidence, or what? Anyway, there it is. The thing is that it was at that time, but now? There is something interesting in this. Look what they tell us. When Kamala Harris was sworn in to be the first female vice president of the United States last Wednesday, she symbolized not only a victory for the visibility of women of color in political office, but also for the communities she represents. They now see themselves within the institutional structures of U.S. domestic politics for the first time. For one group of online media insiders, however, the appointment of Vice President Harris represented something completely different. So striking were the parallels between Harris's appearance at the inauguration ceremony and scenes from a March 2000 episode of The Simpsons. From 2008. That many commentators expressed disbelief that Matt Groening's cartoon creation had somehow predicted Kamala's arrival as vice president. You know that in Matt Groening precisely also appears in some photograph covering with his hand and eye. You know the whole famous Illuminati theme, no? The episode in question was Bart to the Future, where an adult Lisa Simpson becomes the first woman president of the United States. Gathering her staff in the Oval Office, President Simpson wears a purple turtleneck jacket and pearl necklace, an outfit that seemed to foreshadow Harris's choice in jewelry and clothing. Media outlets even claimed that Harris had deliberately taken inspiration from Lisa's clothing, while Yardley Smith, who has voiced the characters since her debut in 1989, tweeted, "I really want to believe that Kamala Harris chose her closet yesterday as a subtle nod to Lisa Simpson." Despite airing some 2 decades earlier, Bart to the Future represents one chapter in a series of prophetic sequences that have recently defined The Simpsons as a highly predictive text. Further adding to the mystique, President Simpson admits to her colleagues, "We inherited a major budget crisis from President Trump," once again confirming the show's enduring ability to predict the future. Anyway, will this now pass in a definitive way? Well, yes, now Biden was in charge, but before that there was Trump, and he was talking about all this, before Trump, also elected as president, years before. Well, it could be a coincidence. It could be a very marked and defined agenda that someone is making in little drawings, to give little messages. In short, the doubt always remains there. But of course there are always many strange coincidences. Be that as it may, it is interesting to see that there are also Hollywood series or movies in which a president of the United States is shown. In short, could it be that they are already setting the tone for that to come? Well, we must remain attentive because we know that the Sunday law will have to be implemented in 2028. And who is going to implement it? Well, someone who feels precisely the same as what is being postulated by Donald Trump and Vance, his second in command. Anyway, time for time, but you already know that the 2025, that project, says really strong, shocking things, and we will show something precisely about it. Do you know where? Yes, at the conferences in Chicago, and if you are in the United States or Canada and want to attend, you will be very welcome, and of course you will see a series of things, by prophecy, that will make you freeze, because the fulfillment of those prophecies so well delineated is already in front of us. I do not know if we will have a continuation or not of this subject. I do not know. Surely more things will arise, because between now and November, who knows what could happen? God will say. But let us remain attentive because yes, the news show that the biblical prophecies and inspired by God, also to Ellen White, and 1800 and something, leave no doubt that they are marking the final ground of this world, and that has to do also, of course, with the United States. Maranatha 2031. God bless you.